We are byproducts of our lifestyle obsession. To truly understand what that expression means, first we have to dive into that's an AI statement. First, we have to understand what the self is. The self, for a lot of people in the Western world, is this stationary concept that lives inside of us, and it's attached to every single individual. So if you're walking down the street, it's believed that you could just take out your phone and scan a QR code on the back of every person, and it will give you a bunch of facts, a description of this person, what their self is. And of course, you have your own barcode. And then, so if it is that, then we can standardize it and we can put it in a bunch of Google reviews. And then now we have self reviews. Oh, what's this person's self? So instead of this innate, special set of characteristics of oneself, it's just this standardized system now that we have. But I think the self is more of a fluid being, like a river. I believe Confucius says that the self is almost always changing, and at any point it could be a snapshot, but the snapshots are never the same. And I think that's more the case, because myself in the past is different from who I am now. I think I was nicer, but at the same time I was more confused. I was more naive, more vulnerable, and I was more susceptible to the systems of thought that my brain used to rationalize the state that it was in. What that means is, for example, I really like this girl a lot. A friend of mine, close best friend of mine. When I was first 17 is when we met. Classic. This is the beginning of any great novel. And I really liked her, and I was grown in a very traditional culture stemming from Polish heritage, and that had a huge influence on me, along with my Catholic beliefs. I knew I was raised, and I still believe today, to put absolute love and affection in a future partner or a wife. And I really like this girl, so I would just devote myself to her. And I was under the impression that the more of myself I gave to her, the more likely she would give more of herself to me, and we would end up being together, one flesh, one soul. Which, of course, was not the case. And a lot of it was just me projecting what I wanted onto someone else. She was great, absolutely wonderful woman. I hope she's doing very well. But I had a lot of shortcomings that I put on her. And so, at the time, a lot of myself was attributed to her. Myself at the time was a very nice, outgoing, enthusiastic, energetic individual. And I still am, but I'm more perplexed and taken back and confused by the systems that define us. There are many systems, and I want to be more concrete with this because I use the word system or systems a lot. System is, an example would be how we interact with others. What is our agenda? Is our agenda to be nice, or is our agenda to be perceived as nice so that we can make a connection with someone, so we're in a community and we have a sense of belonging? Nuanced things like that. When you're walking down the street and you change your walking style, are you really walking this way? Is it natural for you to walk like this, or is it because there are people around and you don't want to seem some certain way? You don't want to suggest you're something based merely on your walking style. All of these nuances in class. In class is a difficult one because if there's a concept you want the teacher to know that you know, so that you have a higher image. You're being perceived better as a better student and more intelligent to the professor. But at the same time, you don't want that pressure from other students. And at the same time, at least for me, I try to maintain a sense of humility, and I like to try to go out of my way to minimize my ego, because I know I'm very susceptible to having a high ego, especially when I'm being praised. So I hate being praised. I strongly dislike it, because then this changes who the self is of myself. So at this point, a certain part of me is definitely coffee. All my videos, this little puppy right here is here. Here is here. This little plastic container that's almost always empty is a part of me, or at least what's contained in it, what it's a symbol of. I drink it way too fast today and I have brain fog. So at this point, the self is simply transcribing itself to the viewer instead of me having to think. I'm simply on autopilot and trying to refine my communication abilities without having to think, or creating a system, a mechanism for me to speak through. And now it's just speaking honestly about a somewhat philosophical concept. Let's go back to the self, because it's ever changing. It's never the same. But it's different from identity, because identity in any moment is how we view ourselves based on all of our previous actions, the thoughts that went into it, and the reasons for doing so. So a lot of our identity is defined only by ourselves. But to others, our identity is different, because all they see is our actions. They can assume our thoughts or what we wanted based on the actions, but all they can see is the actions. We can't share our thoughts. We can't take a thought and be like, oh, that's pretty cool, let me upload it to iCloud. Let me airdrop it with my friend. You can't do that. So all they have is our actions, and of course our speech. But our speech oftentimes is deceiving, even to ourselves, if we believe it. Examples of that. Well, going into the job market, I know that I had to be incentivized to work. So I tell the recruiter, oh yeah, I'm really passionate about accounting, and that's because I believe that I have to be passionate. I'm a very passionate individual, even though I try to minimize that when I'm speaking to the diary, just so I can have raw practice at speaking. And so, of course, if there's something I'm going to do for half of my life, not just something that exists during the half the duration of my life, but literally half of my life, in that you take the amount of seconds I live, divide it by 2, and that's how much I'll be working for, at least the seconds I'm awake, hours, days, whatever. So of course you look at that and you say, I look at that and say, well, I'm not going to be brain dead during that and not do something that I like. So instead of going out and find something I like and taking risks, let me just take this something I'm good at and tell myself I like it, so I can put food on the table. And that's where you enter hell, because the reason you're doing that is because hell is on earth. But the reason we're doing that is because we are byproducts of a lifestyle obsession. My lifestyle obsession is, and still was, and still is, excuse me, having a comfortable life with a wife and kids. Happy wife, happy life. You know, yeah, so anytime I make a joke, I find it hard to retrace back in these videos for some reason. And that still is. So I believe accounting is a means to an end. It's a very serious job. It won't get criticized. It's safe enough. It was safe back then, at least. And so looking at that, I'm like, yeah, I could do it. Nobody would criticize me, so I don't have to worry about my sense of self being changed. fall in line with the system, just like a current. I'm a leaf that fell off a tree of life, onto the river, and I'm like, yeah, let me just keep going this way. Let me not try to break free. I don't need a beaver to save me. Come pick me up, help me, help me. No, I'll just grow in and grow complacent. But that's changed. And I have been skinned by consciousness of the system and consciousness of how humans operate. Not that I'm a very intelligent individual and I've seen everything I need to see. I'm in my underwear, by the way. Pretty cool. But just the fact that I'm disappointed by these novel perceptions of humanity that we've built up, that we're very special. And in fact, we're very flawed, highly flawed, and susceptible, and we're actually, many of us are not good. And I'm trying to understand that from a perspective that is optimistic and gives benefit to the doubt of most humans, in that we were groomed in flawed states, flawed scenarios, flawed upbringings. But at the same time, some people, they didn't have that, and they just chose to be superficial, chose to be evil, chose for another power. And so I used to think that if we wouldn't do it in a natural setting of humanity, in Garden of Eden, then that's who we really are, who we would be then. But then if we can be manipulated by objects and desires to sacrifice others for what we want, and that is our lifestyle obsession, then we really are very flawed, unspecial, and maybe undeserving of all that has come to us. And sometimes when I'm really tired, exhausted, drained, on the approach of dead battery, this brings me great depression, melancholy. The only thing that can save me is sleep, but then it's hard to sleep because you keep thinking about this. And at the same time, that's exacerbated by the invention of AI, because if you can find a shortcut for humans, they'll take the shortcut. I will as well. So I think we had a good run, and I very selfishly say that I wouldn't mind if our run came to a close. If it doesn't, though, I'm going to fight for who we really are as humans, who we're meant to be. Remove these systems and see how we live as free beings, what we'd actually do. Even if it's treacherous, it's disastrous, if it's scary, to have the opportunity to speak for oneself. It doesn't matter what oneself is, but the mission of humans in today's age should be to allow that self to live on its own and breathe and chase its own desires, not these lifestyle obsessions that have been injected into our brain. Dude, Fight Club. I was actually not very impressed with it the first time I saw it, and I haven't seen it in that first year since I saw it twice, which was 4 or 5 years ago, quite a while ago, because it was just destruction, and it was the opposite. It was pure chaos, and it was the opposite of what I saw and believed we needed. But now I'm quite forgot the expression. I have quite an affinity towards it, because there's no other way out but to just destroy it all together, of course, and pave a better world for our descendants. Nobody likes it. We are very nuanced and complex individuals. Trying to understand it has brought me into a great qualm, and It's difficult to come to terms with that. It's weighing heavy on my soul, if there is a soul, which I believe there is. If not a spiritual soul, then a deeper part of the brain that exists between the values we were raised in, the evolutionary systems that we have programmed innately in us, and the life that we're living, the paths that we're chasing now. Because this soul knows exactly what is complete transparency, complete omnipotence of the world. Sometimes it sends us hints. It tells us through our intuition what we should not be doing. A lot of the times it watches back, sits back and observes. That's just how the self is. Excuse me, that's how the soul is. So it's trying to strain your ears and hear it. Like a bird song on a nice Tuesday morning. Or when you're sleeping and you can hear the gentle tap and the interaction of the rain on the roof above you. We're very grateful to have roofs. I mean, this is incredible. Look at this. Not only will this turn on, but listen to the noise. Is that not the cutest thing ever? Look at that. It's very adorable. And so we're grateful to have these things, but we get greedy and we can't live for the cute miniature, the cute features of the world we have created. We want more. We want absolute domination. And I think not. We wage war against that belief. And we stop being consumers and byproducts of our lifestyle obsession, which is, of course, a quote from Fight Club. And humans, primitive to our true selves, whom we let sprout in an unclosed field. Right now we're enclosed, we're in a garden, and our gardener is a great manipulator. Gardener was once a flower, but it's grown so strong. Now it steals our sunlight and leaves us in the shade. Yeah, but we're breaking free. I hope. I'm talking for quite a while. I'm very tired. And I have brain fog. I drank the coffee too fast. So, see you in the next video. Try to find that soul and that self and adhere to it. Bound yourself so that if there's a Venn diagram between your conscious and your soul, or yourself and your soul, that there's no disparity now, and you're one. Even if it hurts you to be that way, or it's very difficult to go against what you've been raised to believe and what you have been corrupted by. That's what we should be doing in this life, because we've gone far past the point of merely surviving for many of us, even though some are less privileged.